Well, talks aimed at advancing a second phase of the Israel-Hamas ceasefire is resuming in Cairo, with Israeli, Qatari, and U.S. delegations in attendance. The discussions follow a partial ceasefire agreement reached in January after intense negotiations. The first phase of the truce, which is set to expire on Saturday, has likely halted the fighting that began with Hamas's deadly October 7 attack, which left 1,218 people dead in Israel. In retaliation, Israel's military response has resulted in more than 48,000 fatalities in Gaza, according to local health officials. While the ceasefire has allowed for some hostage exchanges, the ultimate goal of the talks is to ensure a lasting peace agreement. In a parallel development, an internal Israeli military probe acknowledged the army's complete failure in preventing the Hamas attack. The probe cited overconfidence and miscalculations about Hamas's capabilities, while Israel's military chief, General Herzi Halevi, took responsibility for the lapses.
We're crossing now the border.
Well, in a short while, we're going to have Dr. Marek Laskiewicz join us. He's an international affairs analyst on the program to discuss the second phase. I think Marek is already there. Marek, glad to have you join us.
Sure.
All right. This report highlights gaps in intelligence gathering, flawed assumptions about Hamas, and systemic failures in the Israel Defense Forces preparedness and response. How do you respond to that?
Well, right. That is indeed what the report highlights. In effect, in a nutshell, the Israelis had come to regard Hamas as a spent force, not needed to monitor them too much. They might carry on some minor rocket attacks, that's all. And so they stopped the human intelligence gathering altogether practically and relied on technology and their wall. And all this went horribly wrong. And not only did they go wrong in that respect, but it took them some time to actually work out a counter-defense. They were essentially caught napping. And I think the critical point about the report is that for a while, essentially Hamas were in control of that entire area. They had defeated the local Israeli forces, admittedly through being overwhelmed, but they had defeated them nonetheless. And this is all very sad news for the Israelis. However, they have taken steps. The people in charge have resigned. They've put in new measures. In particular, will carry on gathering intelligence. And from the military aspect, that is what is happening. The key problem is the report did not consider the political issues.
All right. Oh, well, despite having, this is from the report as well, despite having relevant information, the intelligence community failed to recognize Hamas's shift, from a determined and pragmatic group to one actively planning a large-scale offensive. Was it, you could say, due to complacency or total failure of intelligence community and gathering?
Actually, underlying it is complacency, which leads to the failure of intelligence, because that is why there was insufficient intelligence, is because of the complacency. As I stated, the human intelligence side, the listening into telephone conversations, the agents and so on, all this was largely discontinued on the basis it was no longer needed because they felt Hamas was a spent force. Actually, Hamas was in effect regrouping, and therefore, when it finally acted, it caught Israel totally flat-footed.
It's interesting, though, that Hamas, or Hamas had deliberately created a false perception of seeking quiet while accelerating its military build-up. This was good from Hamas, you'd say.
Yes, that worked very well for them. Moreover, it's by no means unusual. Very few countries advertise that they're going to make an attack. And so actually, although the Israelis have drawn attention to this, it's nothing more than usual that before an attack, many nations try to lull their future victim, if you like, into a state of complacency by appearing to be peaceful.
Herzi Halevi, Israel's military chief of staff, is taking responsibility and says he will resign in March. I think March is tomorrow. Why not when it happened? Why is he waiting till March to resign?
Yeah, that's an interesting one. I think he felt perhaps he could, basically bluff his way out of this. But the fact of the matter is there's too much at stake. That the defeat, however temporary, was too much for the Israelis to stomach. And therefore, heads must roll. That is the simple equation of politics. If there's been a failure, people have to pay the price.
All right. Netanyahu is yet to receive the investigation. Can you hazard an opinion as to what his response will be?
Yes. There's been a tightening up. What has happened is there'll be human intelligence again. They're not going to be complacent about Hamas. In the military sense, it has been an overhaul. They're not going to any more times be caught flat-footed. That is the whole military side. And Netanyahu has, as far as I can tell, ordered all this, and this is very good. The central problem is political, though, and of course the report didn't touch this.